Welcome to TPM Vid's Disney Beat, where we talk about all things Disney. If you're new to the channel and like what you see, hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon to be notified when we upload a new video. You can also find us on all your favorite social media platforms. When you think of Disney rides, what probably comes to mind is magical fun for the entire family. But Disney has always had a dark side. From witches and demons in the 50s to face-eating aliens in the 90s, there was a time when Disney was not afraid to terrify its guests. But that's all changed now. So let's trace Disney's history with fear, from the terrifying beginnings to the thrills of the 90s, and then all the way to the family-friendly adventures we see today. When Disneyland first opened in 1955, some of the park's earliest rides were designed to be deliberately scary. If we look back at Disney's early animated films, they all had darker themes. Walt Disney himself believed that stories needed lights and shadows to show that good can always triumph over evil. So when designing the Fantasyland dark rides, Imagineers didn't shy away from the darker side of these stories. It really set the foundation for Disney's relationship with fear. On opening day, Fantasyland had 3 different dark rides, which included Snow White's Adventures. People lined up expecting a happily ever after fairy tale, but little did they know it was the most terrifying ride at the park. Snow White herself was nowhere to be found because guests actually took on the role of Snow White. Throughout the entire ride, the evil queen appeared over and over, popping out in the dark, sending riders through dungeons and forests filled with jump scares. I mean, the ride even ended with the evil queen falling to her death. Apparently, seeing crying children come out of the exit wasn't unusual. Even when Walt Disney World opened in 1971, a similar version of Snow White's Adventures could be found in Fantasyland, and it was just as terrifying. In 1983, Disneyland ended up renaming it to Snow White's Scary Adventures just so people knew what to expect. The ride was even updated to make it less intense and to include Snow White, but it was still pretty dark.
A special gift.
I have vivid memories of riding the less intense version at Walt Disney World in the 90s, and I remember still being completely terrified. I know many share the same sentiment, but it didn't stop it from becoming a staple attraction. They even built variations of the ride in Tokyo and Paris. Another opening day attraction at Disneyland was Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. Like in Snow White's Adventures, riders took on the role of the protagonist of Mr. Toad. At first glance, it seemed like a zany car ride through London, but things took a dark turn. Following a head-on crash into a train, riders found themselves in hell. It was a shocking and surreal ending that no one really expected, especially since Mr. Toad didn't even die at the end of the film. Then in 1969, Disneyland debuted one of its most iconic rides, the Haunted Mansion. Unlike Snow White or Mr. Toad, the Haunted Mansion wasn't about quick jump scares, and it focused more on creating an eerie, immersive atmosphere. As soon as you entered the attraction, ghostly spirits made themselves known. It started in the stretching room and then went all the way until the happy haunts began to materialize. This lead-up created some suspense, but just before things got too sinister, the ride was balanced out with the humor in the graveyard. Even though there were still some jump scares, the hitchhiking ghosts, the singing busts, and even the catchy grim-grinning ghost song turned fear into fun. It's become another staple attraction that can be seen at Walt Disney World and Tokyo Disneyland. While the Haunted Mansion balanced fear with humor, Phantom Manor, on the other hand, at Disneyland Paris, was approached differently. Imagineers stripped a lot of the mansion's humor away and leaned harder into tragedy, creating a much darker and far more creepier tone. In the original version of the ride, the Phantom terrorized Melanie and killed her suitor on the day of their wedding. They even replaced the graveyard with Phantom Canyon, where you encounter deceased residents of Thunder Mesa. The scene feels a lot more tense than the graveyard, especially with the Phantom overseeing the entire scene. Those early rides proved that fear could be timeless. But the question was, how far could Disney push it? Well, once Michael Eisner became CEO in 1984, the parks began leaning even harder into terror and suspense as guests wanted more thrilling experiences. There was also imminent competition with Universal Studios, which meant bigger thrills, scarier stories, and rides that weren't just for kids. Eisner wanted Disney's US parks to have an edge to attract more teenagers and young adults. So this became what I call the PG-13 era of the Disney theme parks. In 1989, Disney MGM Studios opened in Walt Disney World with its headline attraction, the Great Movie Ride. At first glance, it was a typical slow-moving Disney dark ride, providing guests a tour through Hollywood's greatest films. Then, right in the middle, guests suddenly found themselves trapped inside the spaceship from Alien. The alarms blared, steam hissed, and you were face to face with a xenomorph.
Well, I don't like the sound of that.
Warning, remain in your vehicle. The area you are entering is extremely dangerous. Proceed with caution.
This was straight-up sci-fi horror inside a Disney ride, where families just expected G-rated classics. That kind of tonal switch didn't really exist in the parks before Eisner's time. As a kid, I even remember being terrified of the gangster and cowboy scene when the tour guide was kidnapped and then the ride vehicle was hijacked. It didn't help either that Alien was directly after these scenes. In a way, all of Disney MGM Studios was built with more of this PG-13 tone to attract more teenagers and young adults.
It's a fantastic theme park, and it really is a different pace and a different kind of entertainment from the Magic Kingdom and Epcot Center.
Look at Catastrophe Canyon on the Backlot Tour. Then there was the Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular, and even Star Tours for that matter. MGM Studios was the first real sign that Eisner was serious about pushing Disney attractions into darker territory. Even before MGM Studios, Eisner already had proof that this darker side of Disney worked. Sure, there were Disneyland's Fantasyland rides, but in 1986, Tokyo Disneyland opened the Cinderella Castle Mystery Tour. From the outside, it looked like a replica of Disney World's Cinderella Castle, but inside was a completely different story. It was essentially a guided, haunted walkthrough attraction that dove headfirst into some of Disney's darkest stories. Guests encountered skeleton armies, walked through shadowy crypts, and even came face to face with a dragon. But the most shocking was the Horned King from the Black Cauldron. At this point, The Black Cauldron was Disney's darkest animated film. It was also a huge box office flop, yet here was the Horned King front and center in a terrifying finale. Just as he threatened to kill the guests, a child is instructed to use the Sword of Light to defeat the Horned King. This called back to Walt Disney's stance of using fear to demonstrate that good will always triumph over evil. The entire experience was pure nightmare fuel, and yet it was an incredibly popular attraction, running for 20 years. Although the mystery tour closed in 2006, it proved that audiences loved this darker side of Disney. By the early 90s, Eisner was ready to dive even deeper into these more sinister rides with the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror. Opening at Disney MGM Studios in 1994, it combined the eerie atmosphere of an abandoned and haunted hotel with the physical fear of freefall. The attention to detail was unlike anything Imagineers had delivered before, and it was truly an immersive experience. The lobby looked like it's been abandoned for decades, with cobwebs covering everything. When you're in this room, you can sense that something isn't quite right, and this uneasy feeling stays with you throughout the entire ride. Tower of Terror is honestly a masterclass of storytelling through an underlying theme of fear. To this day, it still stands as one of Disney's most immersive, scarier attractions, and it was the perfect embodiment of Eisner's push for more adult thrills in the parks. Just 1 year later in 1995, Eisner and his team went even further with Extraterrestrial Alien Encounter, which opened over at Magic Kingdom.
A teleporter! What? Something's wrong. An alien being has been intercepted. Oh no! He's escaped!
Alien Encounter.
Alien Encounter was marketed as a frightening sensory thriller experience that was intense, dark, and it took thrill at Walt Disney World to a whole new level. Once you are in the main chamber, a terrifying alien appears in the teleportation tube, but then somehow it escapes. The power goes out, then you find yourself in complete darkness when the alien starts terrorizing everyone in the chamber. You can hear the alien shriek, feel it move around the room as the seats rumble and shake, and could even feel the alien's breath on the back of your neck. This was one attraction that truly terrified guests of all ages. Alien Encounter was so intense that there was even this warning at the front of the attraction, but that didn't stop guests' complaints. After only 8 years of operation, Alien Encounter closed permanently by 2003, but it still remains the scariest attraction Disney has ever created. This marked the height of Eisner's PG-13 era. But Alien's blackout and sensory model didn't vanish, because there was more unexpected terror to come. This time, it was hiding in a 4D show under the Tree of Life. When It's Tough to Be a Bug opened with Animal Kingdom in 1998, people thought a 4D show about friendly animated bugs would be fun and harmless. Instead, it became notorious for terrifying kids. After Hopper comes face to face with Flick, the show went pitch black as giant spiders dropped from the ceiling. This reaction was the common reaction you heard every time you would watch the show.
Back off, spiders!
Then came the infamous stinger and bug seat effects, where a sharp jab hit you in the back, and then you felt bugs crawling under your legs. You'd never expect this cute show to end up in the direction it did. But that was the 90s for you. Although It's Tough to Be a Bug is now closed at Animal Kingdom and Disney California Adventure, it will still remain as one of the most underrated Disney attractions. Now, another opening day attraction at Animal Kingdom was Countdown to Extinction, which eventually went on to become Dinosaur. This was another thrill ride that was dark, loud, and very chaotic. There were plenty of dinosaurs to see once you made it into the Cretaceous period, but the ride got intense pretty quick. It was so intense that when it became Dinosaur in 2000, they had to tone down the movement of the ride vehicles. Most of the ride takes place in complete darkness, but that didn't stop your encounters with the Carnotaurus. He was the star, and throughout the entire ride, you constantly came face to face with this enormous, menacing dinosaur. It was a non-stop chase that may have scared some younger guests, but it was a very thrilling and popular ride. By the end of the 90s, nearly every Disney theme park had an attraction designed to push the limits. Whether it was an alien in a family ride, kids battling the Horned King, or a Carnotaurus lunging from darkness. During the Eisner era, Disney was not afraid of these PG-13 scares, but Dinosaur was the edge of the era before they reeled things back a bit. Once Bob Iger became CEO in 2005, the Disney parks fully embraced a new formula that redirected the thrill intensity from terrifying guests to a more fast and fun approach. Although Michael Eisner remained CEO through 2005, the clearest example of Disney's shift away from terrifying guests came with Stitch's Great Escape in 2004. It replaced Alien Encounter at Magic Kingdom, but used the exact same theater and infrastructure. They were the same seats, same shoulder restraints, and the same blackout effects. But instead of a terrifying alien breathing down your neck, it was Stitch burping a chili dog in your face. The DNA of Alien Encounter was still there, but all that terror was swapped for comedy. Now that the attraction was more mischievous and family-friendly, parents complained a lot less, but fans of Alien Encounter often felt it went too far in the opposite direction. Stitch's Great Escape closed permanently in 2020, but I firmly believe that if Alien Encounter was built at MGM Studios, the attraction would have had a much longer life, and it could have still been around today. In 2006, when Disney opened Expedition Everest, there was a bigger shift focusing on adrenaline and adventure compared to terror and jump scares. On the surface, Expedition Everest is a highly themed traditional coaster. There's spectacle, high speeds, and a dramatic encounter with some broken tracks that send you speeding backwards into pitch darkness. In terms of the coaster experience, it's exhilarating and intense, but Disney still built in one terrifying moment, and that's the infamous Yeti. Standing over 20 feet tall, this was Imagineering's most advanced animatronic at the time. It was designed to swipe at your train, and even though you'd only see him for a quick 6 seconds, it was a very impactful climax to the story. Even after mechanical issues forced the Yeti into B mode, or what's commonly referred to as Disco Yeti, the encounter along with its sound effects still remains startling. Unlike other rides that terrified you from start to finish, Expedition Everest focused most of the fear into one unforgettable, terrifying moment. It's truly the ultimate thrill ride. Then in 2019, Disney revealed Star Wars Rise of the Resistance, which is one of the most ambitious rides in modern Disney history. On paper, it has all the ingredients for a more sinister experience. You're captured by the First Order, marched past stormtroopers, and then you're interrogated, all before getting thrown into a cell. But the emotion here is more awe and tension, and not that panic of the 90s. Once you're on the ride, the trackless ride vehicles weave through towering AT-ATs, dodge fire cannons, and then you drop down an escape pod in a surprise freefall. It's still adrenaline-fueled, but it's more of a cinematic spectacle. Modern Disney is focused a lot more on the payoff being exhilaration and not so much terrorizing. We even see this with Tron and Cosmic Rewind, where both offer thrills that make you scream, but leave you smiling. Well, sometimes Cosmic Rewind leaves you vomiting, but you get the point. So, looking back, Disney's history with fear in their attractions is really a story of evolution. In the 50s and 60s, the scares came from fairy tales and fantasy that shocked kids but still fit the storybook narrative. Under Michael Eisner in the 1990s, those scares escalated into Disney's PG-13 era, and suddenly Disney wasn't just spooky. They tested just how far they could push fear in the theme park setting, and it worked. Well, to a point. Eisner's era gave us unforgettable rides like Tower of Terror and Dinosaur, but it also gave us Alien Encounter, an attraction so terrifying it never fully fit with the Disney brand, at least not at Magic Kingdom. The Eisner era really pushed boundaries to the extreme, which makes that period of time so fascinating. Modern Disney now opts for broad, re-rideable thrills with family appeal, and you can see that tone shift in many of the ride replacements. We have Tower of Terror to Mission Breakout, the Great Movie Ride into Runaway Railway, Cinderella Castle Mystery Tour into Fairy Tale Hall, Snow White's Scary Adventures into Snow White's Enchanted Wish, It's Tough to Be a Bug into Zootopia, and in California into Spider-Man, and soon Dinosaur into Indiana Jones. Unfortunately, it's a product of the times, with Disney focusing more on current popular IP integrations. Plus, with being such a family-friendly brand, the blowback from parents for an attraction like Alien Encounter at Magic Kingdom today wouldn't be worth the risk for the company. This doesn't mean, though, that Imagineers aren't able to deliver sinister stories when it's appropriate. In 2019, Tower of Terror in Paris received an update to focus on the little girl who now haunts the halls of the hotel. It's a lot creepier than the original version of the ride. Honestly, Villains Land coming to Magic Kingdom is the perfect opportunity to bring a dose of that 90s intensity back, but still keep it on the family-friendly side. I'm very intrigued to see what Imagineers come up with, but the long and short of it is that modern Disney wants everyone to leave smiling and not crying. So what are your opinions on this shift of fear in Disney's rides and attractions? And which extinct ride from the list would you bring back? I'd love to know. Leave a comment down below to start a conversation, and don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed the video.